I'm live.
You live?
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, guys. I'm gonna read during the day because it's too much for me to read at night. I fall asleep, and that's not good. 1 second, please. Okay, guys. So let's see. Let me get to where you are. I think I have it set for the right time. All right, let me see here.
With landing, you can.
These people are not used to being here. Okay, let's see here. Live chat. All right, I'm gonna go and get everything. Hope the notifications went out. But let me just go and pull up the. All right, so last night we left off here. I'm going back to June 25th, 2008, phone interview, along with the State's Exhibit State's Exhibit 302, and a clip that was shown day 4 of the trial testimony with Detective Flores. So I'm going to start again there. Detective Flores says, you guys took a lot of, and this goes back to part 1 of this. So I have everything in a playlist. You can search, and I'm going to put that all in the video description. Detective Flores says, you guys took a lot of pictures. Actually, he had just purchased a camera. Jodi says, yeah, I remember that. Flores says, I mean, we found the box in his house and everything. Jodi says, yeah, he, you know what? Hold on 1 second, because I don't think we covered, let me see, because I forwarded through last night to see how much more was left to see if I would do it. Okay, so we got to go back a little bit, because I think we're even behind here. Okay, this is where we were, I believe. Okay, so this is going to be the recorded phone interviews with Detective Flores. This is June 10th, 21 and 25. And we were at this part. Okay, so Jodi says, you know, you might want to talk to a guy named Thomas Brown. And I don't think that, honestly, I haven't even seen or heard from him since he was kicked out. And I think his last name was Brown. I could try to find him on ldslinkup.com, but it was, you know, that was so long ago, though. That was last spring of 2007, March even. And what happened was he got kicked out because he was considered like borderline sexual predator, and not like a artist, but coming on to girls and, you know, that kind of thing. And it's just really looked down upon in the church, and so he was defellowshipped, and Travis said, you need to get out, you know, get your stuff out of my house. It wasn't a friendly situation. It was said over the phone because he and I were in a Missouri and somewhere back east and just touring, and Thomas was, Flores says, so he ended up kicking him out at that time? Jodi says, yeah, he kicked him out at that time, but Thomas, you know, he's a really big guy, but he doesn't seem like that. He doesn't seem violent. He seemed pretty gentle. He's just like a little bit thuggish, but like he was trying to act the part, not because he was that. Maybe because he thought it might attract kicks or something. I don't know. I'm pretty sure she meant chicks, and that was transcribed wrong. So he seems, honestly, like I didn't know him that well, but he seemed like a big dumb teddy bear. You know, I just wanted to say that Travis and I had an on again, off again type of relationship, and we just weren't talking the last several weeks. A couple of times a week, and I kept saying, what if I had just gone down there? What if I never moved away? What if I had been there? I don't know. Detective Flores says, so you continue to talk this whole time, huh? Jodi says, yeah, definitely. It was more sporadic. But we usually talk late at night, like 12, anywhere between 12 a.m. and 1 a.m. or like 2, 3, 4 in the morning. He was kind of, Flores says, did he have other cell phones? Because, well, we found one cell phone. Jodi says, no, I'm pretty sure he didn't. Otherwise, I'd know about it. He had, Verizon's cell phone and he had his landline. Okay, and then this is June 21st, 2008. It was a voicemail message from Jodi Arias, and it states Exhibit 389. It was on day 9 of the trial testimony. So there's a voice recording from Detective Flores, and it says, this was sent to my cell phone from June 21st, 2008 from Jodi Arias. You have one saved message. First saved message. It's Jodi. Hi, Detective Flores. This is Jodi Arias calling in regards to Travis Alexander. Saturday, I can't be sure what time, but maybe you're off, and so I hope you're enjoying your day off. If not, if you could give me a call back. My phone number is 831-402-1901. Thanks. Talk to you soon. Bye. End of message. Then we're going to continue with the June 25th, 2008 phone interview, which is the State Exhibit 310, clip number 8 and 8211, Day 4 trial testimony of Detective Flores. Detective Flores says, how long did you guys actually know each other? Jodi says, we met in September of 2006 at the MGM Grand. 2006, Flores says. Jodi says, yeah, and that was the Prepaid Legal International Convention. Flores says, okay. Jodi says, where tens of thousands of people go. Flores says, and when did you actually start dating? Jodi says, not for a while. We met in September. The following weekend, he invited me to church, and then the following Wednesday of that Sunday, he gave me a copy of the Book of Mormon. I started reading it. I got baptized November 26th. We would talk a lot, hang out. We kind of had like a thing, there was definitely an attraction and interest, but we weren't officially dating until about February of 2007, early February, I would say. I think that was just a string of events sort of pushed that together. Travis was he has kind of a commitment phobia, I would guess you could say. Okay, we're going to go now June 25th, 2008. Again, this is the phone interview, States Exhibit 309, Clip 9, Day 4, trial testimony. Detective Flores said, is that when you moved down here? Jodi says, no, I didn't move down here actually until June, which was right around the time we broke up, ironically. Detective Flores says, so you moved down in June of 2007 and you guys broke up soon after? Jodi says, yeah, we broke up right about that same time. Okay, so June 25th, and Jodi says, we've been in relationships before she's been in relationships before where the other guy wasn't faithful, and there's like a distinctive gut feeling that you just have, and that I noticed because I've been in relationships where they were faithful, at least to my knowledge, and they were totally faithful, and the gut feeling isn't there. So I had this feeling with Travis, and I gently asked him about it. He got really upset, and he's like, no, there's nothing there. Don't worry about it. And I knew he was on the phone texting a lot, and I knew he was texting these girls. And I was like, well, what about your text messages? And he's like, look, I can be flirtatious, but there's nothing going on. And I said, so this was last year, I think in June. And one day he was taking a nap, and I felt this is one of the reasons we lost all of our trust. I shouldn't have done this, but I grabbed his phone and I looked at his text messages, and I found that there were tons of girls that I never heard of. And I knew that he had a lot of people from business, so I didn't worry too much about it. But what bothered me was that there were not only were there some flirtatious, like I should have expected, which bothered me, but it wasn't necessarily a crime. I mean, there were plenty of signs. There were plans, like things like, where do you want to meet? Or I don't know where the best place for us, and wherever the best place for us to make out is. And I'm like, what? Oh my gosh. we'd only been dating for a few months at that point, and he'd always, well, we're not dating anyone else. And to him, that was, I think, reasonable enough, because I think in his mind, he was making out with other girls, but he wasn't dating them, and it was okay. And the only reason I think that it's true is because of what we continued to do while he was dating, and I didn't realize that either. I confronted him about it. Actually, I didn't confront him at first. I should have been an adult about it and confronted him, but I held it in for a few weeks, and then it all came out, and that's when we broke up. So I just realized that I didn't feel like I could trust him fully to be monogamous, and I don't think he could trust me fully not to get back into his phone someday and try to find out something. Detective Flores says, yeah. Detective Flores says, what did you do the whole time you were down here? You just kind of tried to work? Jodi says, yeah, I guess I figured, like maybe this is Mormon land of opportunity, honestly. That's kind of the way I looked at it. Detective Flores says, so you just kind of hung around doing your own thing until April or so, whenever you left? Jodi says, yeah, I hung around. I was at the University 6 ward. I went there. He was in the Desert Ridge ward, and we didn't live that far apart. So, I was over there a lot. Not a lot, because we had our own social circle of friends from church that didn't really want to interact, because I sensed that there might be a little bit of awkwardness there because of Lisa and because of Elena, and I didn't. Flores says, oh, that's right. He went out with Lisa right after that. You were kind of just still really good friends, but not romantically seeing each other anymore. Jodi says, not exactly. We broke up last. Flores says, well, kind of. Jodi says, yeah. And I would say there was certainly a romantic side to it. You could say that, or an intimate side to it. But we weren't exactly on the path to marriage or anything like that. And we both knew that. Flores said, now some people had some unpleasant stuff to say about you, and I don't know why. I talked to you and you seem like a good person, and they were saying that you were kind of obsessive after the breakup and things like that. What's going on to make them think that? What was going on to make them think that? Jodi says, the only thing I can think of, and I realized that it's because I was at his house a lot, but I didn't go to his house unless I was invited over or unless he knew I was coming over. He would send me text messages late at night saying, hey, I'm getting sleepy, ... and ... And that became like my cue. That became like our code word for, I'm falling asleep. You can come over now and sneak into my room, come wake me up kind of thing. And so that would happen a lot. Detective Flores says, I don't want to make this unpleasant or anything, but was there a sexual relationship going on after that? Jodi says, yeah, there was. Flores says, okay. Flores says, and you were actually out of town, so it was in April when you left? Yeah, it was in April. I had my friend Rachel that I originally moved down with, gave me a futon to sleep on, and I gave that back about a week and a half prior to moving. Her and her husband came out with his truck, and they loaded it up because they were just lending it to me, and I didn't want to move it. So they came and got it, and I didn't have a bed, and he was like, you can just come stay with me. And so I pretty much stayed there for the last week. Flores says, yeah, his roommate said something about you, the last day that you had a U-Haul and you were leaving and that you stopped by to say goodbye or something. Jodi says, yeah, I had a U-Haul and I was leaving. Hold on a minute. And I was already there, but I parked it around the corner because it was huge, and I had my car on the back of it. So I couldn't park it right out in front of his house. So there's a little, you go just past his house around the corner. I had the U-Haul parked there. Okay. Do you remember what day in April that was? I don't. I want to say, I keep thinking the 9th, but before you quote me on that, I can check. Flores says, but towards the beginning of April, sometime around there. Jodi says, yeah, it was more towards the middle, but it was already maybe towards the beginning. Yeah, because originally I was supposed to leave early April, like April 1st, April Fool's, but I ended up staying for another 4 to 5 days. Flores said, You stayed there with him or someplace? Jodi says, yeah, with him. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. I'm back. That was weird. I thought that was coming from it was weird. I couldn't get through to the phone, and then it was on the message, and I couldn't call back, and thought it was my son calling, but it wasn't. And so, okay. And never mind. Sorry. Okay. So where were we? Okay, so that she was talking about the U-Haul, and let's see, towards the beginning of April. Yeah, it was more towards the middle, but it was already maybe towards the beginning because I was supposed to leave like April 1st, April Fool's, but I ended up staying another 4 to 5 days. You stayed there with him or someplace, Flores says. She goes, yeah, with him. Then Flores says, you guys took a lot of pictures. Actually, he had just purchased a camera. She says, yeah, I remember that. Flores says, we found the box in his house and everything. And Jodi says, yeah, Flores says, did you help him buy that? Or Jodi says, I did. Yeah, I was living here. He called me for advice and I was on the phone with him. Flores says, I never saw somebody who knew what they were doing before buy a camera. Jodi says, yeah, and I guess because I'm a photographer, he texted me. And he was like, what do you think of this camera? And I texted back. And then, well, what about this? And I finally was like, just call me because it's too complicated. So he called me and he was going over. And I was like, ask her this, the sales rep. And, what about this? And where's the flash located? And the megapixels and the brand. And I was like, don't get anything Kodak, just different things. So eventually he settled on, I don't remember what he got, but it sounded like it was a really nice camera. Do you remember when he bought the camera? April, maybe? I know it was after I moved. It could have been May. Okay. It could have been in May. I know it was after I moved up here because I was here. I was on the phone with him when he was purchasing it. Detective Flores says, you never got to see the camera then or anything? Jodi says, no. And I'm trying to remember. Flores says, well, the reason I'm asking you is because we found his camera And, it's pretty much ruined. And we didn't know why. Oh, Jodi says, I can't discuss why, or how it's ruined, but, we have no idea why somebody would, destroy his camera. And, oh, says Jodi again. And I wonder if you could describe it to me, but obviously you haven't seen it, and you've never touched it, and you've never seen it, so no. I'm thinking that there's a picture of him on Facebook where he took a picture of himself in the mirror. Okay, Detective Flores says. Jodi says, and I think that's his camera, so I can't tell what it is, though, because the picture isn't really sharp, and it's small resolution, but there's a picture of him, a profile picture of him on Facebook where he is looking. Okay, and that was the end of that clip that they had. And then they had June 25th, 2008, a phone interview, State's Exhibit number 316 was clip 1, and on day 4 of the testimony with Detective Flores, he's calling Jodi Arias. And it was 6:25:08, June 25th, 2008, at 11:05 a.m. The phone rings. Jodi picks up. Hello? Detective Flores says, hello, Jodi. Jodi says, yes. He says, hi, it's Detective Flores. She goes, hey, how are ya? Detective Flores says, I'm pretty good, all right? Is this a good time for you? Jodi says, I'm sorry, I've got bad reception. Flores says, is this a good time for you to talk? Jodi says, yeah. I'm sorry, that's fine. I'm driving through a spot where I'm good. Flores says, okay, sorry I caught you driving. I hope I don't distract you too much. Jodi says, no, that's okay. Flores says, all right. Jodi says, yeah. Flores says, hey, the reason I wanted to talk to you is just to kind of figure out what was going on the week of, just prior to when we found Travis. Jodi says. Flores says, because we're still not sure what day, the incident happened. Jodi says, Detective Flores says, we're trying to figure out, who had contact with him, and I know I talked to you a couple of weeks ago about what was going on, but it was kind of brief, and I was trying to, she says, get to everybody who, was near the area or whatever, but can you tell me what was going on? And let's see, starting on Monday, I think it was this second, or when you had contact with him, or the last time you talked to him. Jodi says, yeah, I think I know that I talked to him on early Monday morning, which would have been, I was up late Sunday night, for example, and I probably talked to him. It might have been a good 45 minutes that morning. And we were talking about how he had a conversation with another person about Gordon Hinckley, and it was a really conversation. I know he was just talking a lot. What was said there, I think we probably talked till about 4 a.m, I think. Wow. Yeah, we weren't, he was a night owl and I'm a night owl, and it wasn't a really long conversation. We've had conversations that have lasted hours and hours, but this one was probably only, I want to say 45 minutes. It may have been longer. I guess I could check. And that was late at night? Well, technically it was early Monday morning. Okay, Flores says. Jodi says, that was on the 2nd. So, that was primarily what that one consisted of, he knew I was taking a road trip that week, and he was kind of guilting me because I wasn't going to Arizona. I was going to Utah. Okay, why? Was there a conference or something in Arizona as well? Or Jodi says, it was the primary reason, and I didn't tell Travis this, but the primary reason I was going there was to meet somebody. And, we weren't totally open about our dating lives just because it was just an area where we kind of just decided it would be best not to give each other all those details. And so, because we had a past, we kept each other moderately informed. He told me a little bit about this person, a little bit about that person, but we didn't go into a lot of details. So I didn't tell him that I was making this big trip out to Utah to go see somebody. I think he suspected it, though. He was just like, well, who are you going out there to see? And I'm like, oh, nobody. I'm just going out there to see friends. And because we both have a mutual circle of friends in Utah from prepaid legal, so I told him that was the reason I was going. And there's a briefing out there. It's called Business Briefing, which happens every week on Thursday nights. So I was leaving for that. And, there was that reason because I knew I would see a lot of my friends that night, but also to spend time with my other friend that I was meeting, and his name is Ryan. I talked to him that day, and later on that morning, I got on the road, and my car isn't the best mechanically, so I stopped in Redding at the airport to rent a car, and someone had driven me there. My future soon-to-be sister-in-law drove me there. And let's see, I got the car, I came back to my brother's house, and I took a nap for a while because I had been up all night. And then I got on the road and I went to Santa Cruz, and I met up with some other friends from the Monterey area. Okay, Flores says. Jodi says, so I have lots of friends there, and I stayed the night at a friend's house. And I visited with some other friends, and the next day, and then I drove to LA so that I could see my other friends. And I'm a photographer. I don't know if I told you that. Yes, Detective Flores says. Jodi says, but yeah, I'm a photographer. So she just recently had a baby, and I was trying to build my profile with infants and things like that. Who were you visiting there again? Oh, her name is Laura Brewer. She actually never called me back. She did call me back, but she called me back too late, so I couldn't just wait around because I had an itinerary. She was just a friend, or she's a really cool friend. I dated her brother for about 4 years, so we're a lot like family still. Oh, okay, Flora says. Jodi says, hang on just a quick second. I'm sorry. Are you still there? Yeah, Detective Flores says. Jodi says, I'm sorry, my phone, I've just got to figure it out. Sorry, I'm just getting out of my car. It's just a little distracting. No problem, says Detective Flores. All right. So that's the last time you talked to him was like Monday morning from, Jodi says, I'm sorry, I did talk to him on Tuesday night. On Tuesday night, Flores says? Jodi says, it was brief though. It was like, that was just a matter of a few minutes. It wasn't like a real in-depth conversation. Flores says, do you know what time it was? Jodi says, 10 o'clock maybe? 10 p.m., Flores says? Yeah, Jodi says, I'd say 10 p.m. or maybe 9, 9:30, 10, 10:30? Something around there. I guess I could go back and check. Flores says, how about 9 to 10? Anywhere in there? Jodi says, somewhere between there. Yeah, it was kind of late evening. I mean, for us, that's not late, but. Flores says, what was the purpose of the call? Jodi says, just calling to check in and say, and let him know just. Flores says, okay, and Jodi says, I was just calling people because I was bored and I was on the road. Flores says, oh, you were on the road at that time? Jodi says, yeah, it was real brief. He was nice and cordial, but he was kind of acting like he had hurt feelings because he knew I wasn't planning on. Flores says, oh, I see. The reason this actually occurred is people are saying they lost contact with him maybe Tuesday. On Tuesday, Jodi says? Tuesday or Wednesday, some people aren't sure. They're trying to think back. Jodi says, I talked to him last Tuesday, and I'm sure I called him. I may have called him on Wednesday. I know I called him again from the road twice. I sent him a couple of text messages. I sent him a picture. Flores said, did you actually talk to him, though, when you were on the road? Jodi says, yeah, but it was when Flores says, when you first started? Jodi says, yeah. It was, I did talk to him. I'm sure that was Tuesday night. Flores says, okay. Jodi says, and I figured he was either in California because he was planning to go there that week. I think because he had to. I know he had to go to California sometime before Cancun, but because he wasn't going to leave his dog he was going to leave his dog with his grandmother. Okay, Detective Flores said. Do you remember what time on Tuesday night it was that you talked to him? Jodi says, oh, it was dark. I think it was like 10, maybe 10 o'clock or 9:30. Detective Flores says, at that time, you were still heading to the LA area, or were you already going to Utah? Jodi says, I was in Pasadena when I talked to him. I think I had just left a Starbucks or something. I don't remember. I don't know if I had gotten gas there or what Starbucks. I think I was talking to him. Flores says, now, what was the conversation about? Jodi says, it was really brief. It was 2-3 minutes. And I said, hey, I'm on the road. So, and going, he knew I was headed to Utah, and I just called because I called my sister, and I think I may have called Ryan. I don't know if I had called him yet at that point, but I was waiting around for a while for Laura, and I didn't know where she lived, and I couldn't call her brother because he was at work, and I didn't just want to show up at her house because I hadn't heard back from her. So I was just killing time and called him, talked to him briefly, and Detective Flores says that's about the last time people were able to get a hold of him as well. And people were saying, yeah, we texted him and called him, and then pretty soon I think his voicemail was full. Jodi says, yeah, that's unusual because he deletes messages, like he doesn't save anything, even if it's halfway sentimental, like he rarely saves that stuff. Detective Flores says, so the next time you tried to call him, you weren't able to get a hold of him? Jodi says, no, I left him a message and I sent him text messages, and he said he doesn't always pick up, but he's usually good and he doesn't always respond, but I didn't hear from him for like 2 days, and I called him again. I didn't want to be obsessive about it because, we're not together anymore, and I'm just like, I don't like calling him too much, but he'd call me or I'd call him, and it was a pretty good balance. But at one point, it was like, at what point do I start calling friends that live there? The thought crossed my mind, but I was like, no, he's in California, he's going to Cancun. Flores says, so you didn't get to meet with her then? I didn't. So I just hung out there for a while at Starbucks, just refilled and all that, and talked on the phone for a little bit. And I got on the road and I went to Utah. I slept in my car. That's a long drive from LA. Jodi says, it's about 9 hours. So yeah, actually just as long to go from LA to West Jordan as it is to go from Eureka to LA. Flores says, let's see. So the meeting in Utah, when did that happen? Jodi says, that was Thursday night at 7. I don't remember the exact location, but I followed Ryan there. Oh, so you met him there? Jodi says, yeah, we crashed at his house for a little while and hung out and all, and then went to the meeting and then slept a little bit longer because I was, before I got on the road. And Flores says, I had talked to, I can't remember who it was up there in Utah. They called me and they said they knew Travis. They said there was a meeting on Wednesday, or was it Thursday? Jodi says, oh, there is a luncheon on Wednesday. I didn't go to that though. Flores says, that's what they were talking about. Jodi says, I don't think I went to that. No, I went to some kind of meeting. It was at a restaurant. The restaurant owner's name's Chris, and he was recruited by Ryan. Detective Flores says, maybe that's what they said. They said it was kind of like a split-up meeting. One day they had a luncheon, the other day is a meeting. Jodi said, yeah, I didn't go to the lunch meeting. It looks like the thing that happens, it's the same kind of deal when you sit in the restaurant instead of a business-style meeting where the meeting you kind of just sit there for an hour and listen to a presentation for 45 minutes or however long it takes. But the luncheon, you listen to the same thing, but you get to eat lunch, and it's in a restaurant. Flores says, so did you ever stop by Vegas on the way out? Jodi says, I went by Vegas. No, I go there once a year anyway for the prepaid legal thing, and I've never been a gambler or lived that kind of lifestyle. So no, I just drove through. I went through Boulder City and I went through Vegas. I don't remember all. I think Henderson, and so I went up through, I think it was St. George. It took a while. I was on the phone most of the night with Ryan at that time, but so he could keep me awake, but I still had to pull over anyway. I mean, I'm not shy about just pulling over wherever and sleeping in my car. Oh, sounds dangerous. You need to be careful, Flores says. It is. It's not the smartest thing. I realize that. I usually park my car in a place where I can just drive off if need to. I had it backed out instead of, I have it backed out instead of, and I have the keys in the ignition so that I'm ready to go. But either way, it's still kind of safe. Anyone could break a window or something, but Detective Flores said, well, in this day and age, you need to have some kind of protection. You driving alone. Jodi says, I was thinking of that. I know. I don't know. Yes, I do. But Flores says, that's not too difficult. Well, California, I would say, it's a little more difficult. At least in Arizona, you don't even have to register any of your weapons. You just kind of, you go buy them and that's it. Jodi goes, really? Flores says, yeah. Jodi says, I've actually looked into it. I've actually looked into handguns because I have like a list of things that I'm really scared of and I'm trying to overcome, and that's one of them. And being in front of public crowds is another. And I was shaking when I sang the national anthem. There were only like 100 people, but I had to hold the microphone and my hands were shaking. And so actually I got that from Travis because he would try to push yourself past your comfort zone and make yourself uncomfortable and do things that you're scared of. And I've been looking into that, but handguns are expensive and, not really in my price range right now. Not. Anyway, what was I saying with that? Flores says, oh no, we just discussed, the next 2 days after that, you weren't able to get a hold of him and thought about calling his friends. Jodi says, yeah, and that's part of the reason I didn't, because I know that it didn't feel like my place any longer to be like his mother and calling his friends. Flores says, so you knew about his trip? Do you remember him telling you when he was leaving for his trip? Jodi says, yeah, because we had discussed the dates of travel up here. I asked, he had said he was leaving on the 10th, and I didn't know how long it would be or if he would come here 4 or 5 or 6 days, but I did know that the last we had discussed is his trip was going to be up here was going to be after Cancun, because he came to me sometime. He came to see me towards the end of June, and it would probably be a 4-day thing for me or a 3-day thing, but longer for him because he was traveling along the California coast and up to Washington. Flores says, okay, so he was going to leave on the 10th, and when was he going to come back? I don't know. Flores says, well, when did you first find out what happened to him? Dan called me. Dan who? Dan Freeman, I'm sorry. Oh, Dan Freeman. Jodi says, yeah, he called me Monday. I think it was Monday night, but it was more like, I think it was Monday night, like 11. And he said, hey, how are you doing? And I was like, Dan, because I had been thinking about him and I was planning my trip to Arizona, and he was definitely on my list of people to visit. I love him and his family. I used to go there every Sunday for dinner, and I said, hey, how you doing? And he's like, great. And I said, hey, I've been thinking about making a trip out there. And he's like, yeah, I think you're going to have to. And I was like, yeah. And then there was a pause, and he's like, yeah, this is about Travis. And I was like, what? That's never good. But Flores says, yeah, like the way he said that, yeah. Jodi says, yeah, so, but I didn't think anything at first. I mean, kind of. Well, okay, what? You don't want to assume too soon. And he said they found him. And I was like, what does that mean? Well, I don't know. Well, what do you think it means? What do you mean you don't know? What do you know? I don't really know anything right now. I just know that Hyatt is at his house and Taylor Searle is at his house and the cops are there. And I was totally shocked. I mean, I don't think that I said much. I think I just kept thinking maybe there's a mistake. I wasn't sure, and he didn't really know, so I just kept thinking there was a mistake because he didn't really say anything. He didn't give me any information, so I thought, he said I was the first person he thought of to call, but I think he called a couple of the leaders in Travis's business first that were close to him. I don't know who he called or in what order, but he called me, and I kept thinking that maybe he made a mistake. And I felt so helpless because I wasn't there. I still lived there because I was like 10 minutes, before I was like 10 minutes away, not even 10, maybe 7 minutes away. I could have just driven there, but I found out and saw what's going on. I felt totally helpless. Flores says, what did you think about? I mean, the last time you had talked to him was what? Was it Monday or Wednesday? When was that? Jodi says, I think it was Tuesday evening. Yeah, Tuesday night. Flores says, yeah. Did you think of, what was going on the last time you talked to him? Did you try to get a hold of him after that? Jodi says, yes. Yeah, I did try to get a hold of him. I called him Tuesday night. I called him subsequently and emailed him a couple of times. Flores said, well, is there anything else that you can remember or think of, or any theories or anything that can help us? Jodi says, I just don't know. Travis was a friend to everybody. Flores says, yeah. Jodi says, and even when things were bad between us, he would always give his last, he would give his last dollar, his last whatever. He was selling me his BMW, and I was actually supposed to email. Flores says, yeah, you mentioned that. You kind of burned it out or something? Jodi says, yeah, well, you said you found my check at his house? Flores says, a check? Oh, yeah, a check that you gave him for a payment? Jodi says, yeah. I made, I guess it was like just so dumb. Like it seems so unimportant, but I guess I need to know if that check is going to be deposited anytime soon. Flores says, no, after his death, it can't be deposited. Really? Jodi says. Yeah, Detective Flores says. Okay, well, then I'll consider that whatever, and I'll still owe him the full balance until they figure out what they're going to do. Honestly, I trashed his car, and he took it so well. We were trying to figure out between my lawyers and his lawyers and prepaid legal and the insurance and the U-Haul who was going to be held liable. And, it didn't matter who was held liable. The fact was that there was a debt that I promised to pay, and it's just money, and it isn't worth it, anything. So, as far as him getting any tensions over it, so he never had any doubt that I would pay him back, but he was trying to do what was difficult because he was trying to work with the insurance to hold the U-Haul accountable over how it had all gone down. He said that the engine just blew up. Now, the vehicle was still in his name, correct? Flores says. Yeah. He still has he was going to hold the title until I paid it, the balance in full, Jodi said. Okay, did you guys have a written contract or anything? Jodi says, yeah. What I did is I typed out an email to him. I sent it to him. I just wrote back, just reply if you agree with this. And he wrote back something about, you didn't say anything about your own insurance. And so I amended that, I think. And then I wrote him back. And so that was our agreement. Our agreement was I would pay him what I can each month until the balance is paid off. And I take care of general maintenance like oil changes, tires, things like that. Flores says, I don't know what's going on with that, with his car or anything, or if it's still at the shop, but his family. Jodi says, I think it's sitting there collecting dust. He said, yeah, his family is dealing with that because it's still considered one of his assets and it goes in. Jodi says, oh. Flores says, so. Jodi says, yeah, I was told, and I probably shouldn't have done this, but I didn't know who to get a hold of or who was doing what. And I should have asked Dan first, but I emailed his sister, Tanisha, on MySpace. And I was just like, I just sent her my condolences. And the next paragraph, I was like, it's really hard, but I owe Travis this amount of money. And I know that at one point, I'll need to settle this debt. That kind of thing. But if you need to be in contact with me, this is my phone number. And she didn't get back to me, Flores says, well, when a death occurs like this, everything has got to go to probate anyway. Yeah, Jodi says, and I realize now, but there's Mike Chapman, the executor of his will. And so I did get in touch with him yesterday, and he said that just give me all the information you have on the matter, and then we'll go from there and decide what's going to happen. Flores said he never gave you the password for his voicemail or his phone? No, Jodi said. Did you ever obtain it at any time or... I didn't have it, but he had one PIN number that he used all the time, and that was 1220. Yeah, Flores says. Jodi says, I don't know if that was his voicemail PIN too, or he had a garage PIN. Hang on a minute. This is Okay, I'm sorry about that. It's feast or famine sometimes with this stuff, but no, my daughter had the heat. They couldn't get it on, but it ended up being a good thing because it's a long story, but her old roommate moved out who was holding the lease, and in contacting the landlord, she found out that her old roommate was doing like things that were not good, like raking her over the coals for the splitting of the rent and stuff. So anyway, it's going to work out well, even though they didn't have heat for her. They got some space heaters, but yeah, it was ridiculous. Anyway, it's all sorted out, and sorry about the interruption. What's going on here? Okay, now I don't know. Did the notifications not go out or something? I mean, this is really unusual to have this many people watching. It's really unusual. I'm wondering if something is going on, if something's not getting out there, because that's like beyond pitiful. I'm starting to get a really bad complex. Okay, but I'm going to continue doing this. All right. I don't know what's going on. Let's see. All right. Let me go back to where we were, which was over here. So, he never gave you the password for his voicemail. No, she says. Did you ever obtain it at any time? She says, I didn't have it, but I had one PIN number that he always used, and that was 1220. Yeah, Flores says, I don't know if that was his voicemail PIN number 2. Oh, and he had a garage PIN, and I have that too, which was different. His garage was 1220 was the PIN for his ATM, because there were many times he gave me his card to go get money. Do you think that was the PIN for his phone as well, Flores says? Jodi says it's possible. I don't know what kind of, mine's not password protected. Oh, mine is password protected. Mine before it wasn't. Sorry. And the one for his was his person's name, birthday. That's how I remembered it. And then he gave me the garage PIN, which was 0187, and I think that was Chris Hughes' birthday. Okay, and hold on. That might be, now I'm going into a cross-examination thing here, which I don't know how this just jumped to that in the transcripts, but looks like that was the end of those transcripts from the calls. Let me see here. Yeah, let me just see here. Okay, let me just see one thing here. So, 1 second, please. Okay, guys, let me see here. So that was the end of that testimony that was in court, and I'm going to go over here and try to see what else we're going to go through today, since that wasn't a lot and it was so badly botched and interrupted. Let me just go over here. Okay. So the timeline in this case, just to go through it, from the time, June 4th, where Arias kills Alexander during the visit. June 5th, she continues to Utah, where she sees the other man, Ryan. And then June 9th, the friends find Travis's body. July 9th is Jodi Arias' 28th birthday, and a grand jury indicts her on first-degree murder. July 15th, she was arrested at her grandparents' house. She maintained she wasn't involved. On September 5th of 2008, she was extradited to Arizona, where a public defender was assigned to represent her. September 11th, 2008, she pled not guilty. Also in September of 2008, Jodi tells various media outlets that two masked intruders attacked her and killed Travis. And in a jailhouse interview with Inside Edition, she says, "No jury is going to convict me. I am innocent, and you can mark my words on that." On October 31st, 2008, prosecutors filed a notice of intent to seek the death penalty. They contend that Jodi planned the attack and killed Travis in a jealous rage. August of 2010, Jodi changes her story about the murder and then claims it was self-defense. December 10th of 2012, the jury selection begins. 18 potential jurors and alternates eventually are chosen. January 2nd, 2013, the opening statements start. Purportedly drawn by Arias. Artwork purportedly drawn by Arias soon begins to sell online. January 2nd, 2013. January 8th of 2013, prosecutors show jurors bloody crime scene photos where Jodi Arias appears to be shaken in the courtroom. February 4th of 2013, Jodi takes the witness stand and testifies for 18 days, telling jurors that Alexander was physically and emotionally abusive. She said he turned violent the day of his death, forcing her to fight for her life. She says she lied about it earlier because she planned to commit suicide. March 14th, 2013, a defense expert testifies that Jodi suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder and amnesia, explaining why Jodi can't recall much from the day of the murder. Prosecutor Juan Martinez later questions that expert's evaluation process, saying that Jodi was still lying at the time about having killed Travis Alexander. March to April 2013, another defense witness tells jurors that Jodi was abused by Travis and suffered from battered woman syndrome. Previous paper by this psychotherapist sparks a debate between her and Juan Martinez over whether Snow White was an abused woman. Meanwhile, a prosecution expert maintains that Jodi Arias has borderline personality disorder. April 2nd, 2013, a juror is dismissed, reportedly for making statements that showed bias. By this time, the case is a tabloid and cable TV sensation, attracting spectators from around the country. 2 more jurors eventually are released. May 2nd, 2013, the closing arguments began. Prosecutors described Jodi as a manipulative liar who meticulously planned the savage attack. May 3rd, 2013, closing arguments conclude with Jodi Arias' lawyer imploring jurors to take an impartial view of the case and his client, even if they don't like her. The final 12 jurors are chosen and they begin their deliberations. May 8th, 2013, the jury reaches a verdict, which was scheduled to be announced at 1:30 p.m. that day. Jodi Arias, guilty of first-degree murder. The verdict was read at 1:49 p.m. And then we know that it was hung on the sentencing and went back. So now let's see. Okay, sorry. Oh, and the groundhog saw his shadow, if you don't know. 6 more weeks of winter, just as I predicted. Okay, let's go to... This is, I think, is this the one we saw here? I apologize, I'll explain to you. I think we read that one. Okay, that was the secret. What else is good to dive into here? Transcript errors, omissions prolonged Jodi Arias' appeal. Our secret testimony. Yeah, I know you guys wanted to talk about that. The defense's expert who, let me see here. Okay, here's something that was, let me see when this is from, May 24th of 2013. And it's about I think it's from the jury foreman back then. So as jurors in Jodi Arias' murder trial filed one by one from the courtroom, after a dramatic 5 months of gut-wrenching testimony and gruesome photographs, 3 women on the panel cried and one looked to the victim's family, mouthing the words, "sorry." The silent gesture towards the loved ones of Travis Alexander offered a glimpse into what was likely a tense few days inside deliberations as the jury finally determined it could not agree on whether to sentence Arias to life in prison or execute her for murdering her boyfriend, Travis Alexander. So after about 13 hours of deliberations over 3 days, the panel gave up. And then Judge Sherry Stevens announced a mistrial in the penalty phase of the case. Conference with the judge and attorneys was set for June 20th to determine how both sides want to proceed. It's funny, that's my mother's birthday, and he was killed on my birthday. In the interim, Judge Stevens set a July 18th retrial date, sending prosecutors back to the drawing board to rehash the shocking details of sex and lies to another 12 people. The judge said this was not your typical trial. You were asked to perform some very difficult duties. Jurors declined to comment as they left the courthouse, but on Friday, the jury foreman, William Zervakos, went to Good Morning America and said that Jodi's testimony didn't do her any good. I think those 18 days hurt her. I think she was not a good witness, he said. We're charged with going in and presuming innocence, right? But she was on the stand for so long. There were so many contradicting stories. He said the prosecutor's aggressive style, the length of time testifying would be difficult for anybody. I don't think I'd want to sit on the stand for 18 days. He said he believed that Travis Alexander mentally and verbally abused Jodi. And I hope we're still live because I just heard my internet click on and off. Let me just make sure. Yeah, I think we are still live. Oh, what, really, Robin? Wow. Okay, so we are still live, right? You guys can hear me? Because my thing just clicked on and off like it. I think we're okay. But I don't see the chat moving at all. Let me just see. Are we okay? Can you still hear me? Hello? Okay, good. All right, thank you. Thanks. Okay. Let me go over here. Now I just totally lost my my place here. Where am I? Come on. Hang on. Where did you go? Not you guys. I found it. Okay. So he believed, the jury foreman believed that Travis Alexander mentally and verbally abused Jodi Arias. Is that an excuse? Of course not. Does it factor in the decision that we make? It has to, he said. And the mistrial set the stage for a whole new proceeding to determine whether the 32-year-old former waitress should get a life sentence or the death penalty for murdering Travis Alexander 5 years ago. She slashed him, stabbed him nearly 30 times, slit his throat from ear to ear, and shot him in the forehead in what prosecutors described as a jealous rage after The victim wanted to end their affair and planned to head off on a trip to Mexico with another woman. The guilty verdict of the first-degree murder would stand, and it leaves the new panel only tasked with sentencing Arias. However, former Maricopa County Attorney Rick Romley said the case could drag on for several months as the new jury reviews evidence and hears opening statements, closing arguments, and witness testimony in a Cliff Notes version of the trial. So it was essentially like two trials, okay, because they had the new jury had to hear all this stuff. So it's just amazing how much is out there, you know? Now, if the second jury cannot reach a unanimous decision, which they didn't, the judge would then sentence Arias to one of the life in prison options. The judge cannot sentence Arias to death. Jodi Arias first said she wanted to die, but later changed her mind and pled with the jury for mercy, looking visibly upset about the mistrial and sobbed in the courtroom before it was announced. Her family didn't attend Thursday, but has been present for much of the trial. Travis Alexander's family member cried as they left the courtroom without commenting. Jurors began deliberating Jodi Arias' sentence on Tuesday and first reported that they had failed to reach a unanimous decision the next day. The judge instructed them to keep trying. The mistrial came 2 days after Jodi spoke to jurors and pled for her life. She said she lacked perspective when she told a local reporter after her conviction that she preferred execution to spending the rest of her days in prison. That same night, Jodi gave a series of media interviews from jail, telling reporters about her many fights with her legal team and her belief that she deserves a second chance at freedom someday. She contends that she killed Travis in self-defense when he became enraged after a day of intimacy, forcing her to fight for her life. Okay. All right, let me go. Okay. Merry Christmas. Lisa Nia, that clock. Is still going in June. Okay. Just trying to get some of this stuff out here. Because, I mean, you definitely have to watch the trial, but I just want to take a little bit of a deep dive. And you know that with the members, we're reading Juan Martinez's book. So you know that. And we have to have another session of that. Hopefully, what's today? Today is Wednesday? Today's Wednesday. I don't know, maybe tomorrow night? I'm trying to think, maybe tomorrow night? I don't. And then we're still reading The Killer Across the Table with the Patreons. But, let me see here. I know you guys wanted to discuss Alice Laviolette, her testimony. I'm trying to see what I can find on that we can discuss, because that was really okay, so the prosecutor in the Jodi Arias trial has called into question psychotherapist Alice Laviolette's credibility because the only person she interviewed to determine whether Jodi suffered from domestic abuse was Jodi herself. Juan Martinez spent the last week exchanging verbal jabs with Alice, who claims that Jodi Arias was a victim of abuse at the hands of her ex-boyfriend Travis. At one point during the exchange, Laviolette told Martinez that he needed to take a time out. On Thursday, Martinez said that Jodi invented the domestic violence and that Alice blindly accepted her story without talking to anyone else. Alice said she spent 44 hours interviewing Jodi Arias in jail. You didn't talk to any of the other witnesses, right? Martinez asked. No, I did not, Alice answered. The only person you talked to was the defendant, right? Martinez asked. Correct, Alice said. Martinez told the jury that even Jodi's own father stated that she was a liar in the police interrogation interviews that were released. William Arias, on the day his daughter was arrested, told the detective in a videotaped statement, she's never been honest with us since then, and she probably was 14. The jury didn't get to see the tape, but the judge allowed Martinez to ask questions about it. Don't you think his view of her truthfulness has a much better basis than yours? He has a much longer history with her, Alice replied. Testimony turned to Jodi's sex life with Alexander. Martinez questioned Alice about a phone call that Jodi recorded on which she and the victim are simulating graphic acts. There was no indication from the tape itself that Ms. Arias wasn't enjoying herself as much as Mr. Alexander, right? Martinez says. Alice agreed. The defense has worked to portray Jodi as having only participated in raunchy sex acts with Alexander to please him and to tame his temper. But Alice struggled to respond to questions about whether Jodi may have been faking her pleasure on the phone call. My expertise is in domestic violence, not in orgasm, she said to the prosecutor. Juan Martinez's aggressive style of questioning experts put up by Jodi's defense team paid off when he got psychologist Richard Samuels, who diagnosed Jodi with PTSD, to concede that he probably should have re-administered a test once it was determined that Jodi had lied. The effectiveness of Juan's fiery approach was less certain in dealing with Alice, a woman who has spent her life helping domestic violence victims. Alice lashed out at Martinez as he raised his voice in frustration when she dodged one of his questions. She said, "If you were in my group, I would ask you to take a time out, Mr. Martinez." Alice's testimony continued after that. So that was something. So yeah, we're going to take a look, see if I can get the transcripts of that for another time, and also the transcripts of the interview with her father, and go over Ryan Burns and some other stuff. But at least we got through the Flores stuff without me falling asleep. Sorry for all the phone call exchanges. I'm going to be live anyway. No, I don't know if I'm going to go do that live or I'm going to record that and do it as a premiere. I probably will do it as a premiere. Jimmy was able to blow up the heart balloon the right way, so I'm going to do that. But I probably will record that and do it as a premiere and be in the chat. But anyway, thank you for those of you that came here. Thank you, Mimi. Thank you, Mike, Margot, Sensible Crime, Dare to Be Different, Robin Lane, Farm Wife, Tammy, Vintage Gal, Greg Ellick, let's see, Chelsea, Nightmare, Linda Vishler, Annie B. Fans Guide, can I do a deep dive into the Lauren Smith Fields case? No one has bothered to get the autopsy police report. I would love to have a deep dive. Let me get that. Let me copy that right now, Fans Guide, and I'll take a look at that. The name's not ringing a bell off the top of my head, but if I look at the case, it might. Let me see. Lauren Smith Fields was found dead. Her family had to beg. Let me see what this is about. Lauren Smith Fields was found dead. Her family had to beg for answers. She died in her Connecticut apartment. Oh, this is the one. Okay. Aha. Yeah, I did cover this briefly. This is one also my daughter mentioned. I covered this last night. That just the headline portion of the broadcast. But she's the one that was killed after the Bumble date, right? And she was the one that, well, she wasn't killed. She was, let me see. It's looking like an overdose, right? So let me make sure I have the right. Let me see here. That she went out with the guy and then the guy called and, let me see here. Chantel Fields had not heard from her daughter all day. Are you okay? Please let me know, she texted. Her texts and phone calls went unanswered, so on the evening of December 13th, she and her son went to their daughter's apartment and found a note on the door. If you're looking for Lauren, call this number, the note read. Soon the landlord came downstairs. I started panicking. Mrs. Fields said, choking back tears, all I could do was stand there like I was frozen. I could not believe what he was telling me, that my baby was gone. Oh yeah, is this also about the Bridgeport Police Department, right? Not informing her, and she found out from the landlord that Miss Smith-Fields had been on a Bumble date with an older man before she died. Weeks passed after her death. Her family said with few updates. On Sunday, that would have been her 24th birthday, they were joined by friends, community members, and activists as they marched to the Bridgeport mayor's office, demanding that something be done. They had a cake, sang happy birthday, and released pink and red balloons into the sky. Okay, yeah, I know that 2 officers, that they were suspended, right? The Connecticut Office of the Chief Medical Examiner on Monday released the cause of Ms. Smith-Fields' death, an overdose of fentanyl combined with prescription medication and alcohol. The officer ruled her death an accident. A day later, in response to the medical examiner's findings, the Bridgeport Police Department opened a criminal investigation into her death. More than 1,350 people died from drug overdoses in Connecticut in 2021. Fentanyl was the most common drug involved in those deaths. The Bridgeport Police Department continues to treat the untimely death of Lauren Smith-Fields as an active investigation, said Rebecca Garcia, the chief of police. Darnell Crosland, the family's lawyer, believes the criminal investigation should have been opened as soon as Ms. Smith-Fields was found dead. We thought from the beginning there was foul play. The attorney stated, he added that when you launch an investigation, that investigation must start with and include the last living person that reported the death of another person. Slow response from law enforcement and delayed news coverage of the death of Ms. Smith-Fields, who is black, has renewed conversation around missing white woman syndrome, a phrase coined by the PBS anchor Gwen Ifill nearly 2 decades ago, that describes the attention paid to white women who disappear to be in harm's way, while black women in similar situations are often ignored. After the Gabby Petito case, I felt, just from my perspective, that we were starting to see more equitable coverage, said Danielle Slockoff, an assistant professor of criminal justice at Sacramento State University. Ms. Petito was a 22-year-old white woman who went missing last September and was later found to have been strangled to death. Her case had the media transfixed. But then Lauren's case happened, and I saw that really it was the family and social media that were keeping the case going. They were keeping the interest going, and it was disappointing. The family deserves the space to grieve, and instead they are, in this story, trying to get justice for her. The bulk of information the family has received about the death of Ms. Smith-Fields comes from an incident report by the Bridgeport Police Department. According to those records, her date, who was 37 and white, told investigators that he first connected with her on Bumble, a popular dating app. She invited him over to her apartment after 3 days of chatting. On the evening of December 11th, they ate food, drank tequila with mixers, played games, and watched a movie. At one point, he told investigators that they continued to watch the movie, and then she fell asleep on the couch. He carried her to the bedroom. He fell asleep beside her, adding that when he woke up at 3 a.m. to use the bathroom, she was asleep and snoring. But when he woke up again at 6:30, she was lying on her side, blood coming out of her right nostril onto the bed. She was not breathing. He called 911. He was trembling and visibly shaken, the responding officer, Carla Ramele, said in the report. She said she found Miss Fields lying on her back on the bedroom floor. She wasn't breathing. She had dried blood in and around her right nostril. Hold on. Let me put this up here so we're not... According to the police report, which also noted that there was $1,345 in cash found in the apartment. When Miss Fields arrived at her daughter's apartment on December 13th, the landlord put the family in touch with Detective Cronin. My son talked to him and he was asking what happened. Cronin said that she met a white guy on Bumble, but don't worry about it. He's a really nice guy. Family waited for the detective to arrive, but after calling repeatedly, they went inside the apartment to pack up their daughter and sister's belongings. What they found in there was a used condom, a pill, and bloody bed sheets. I looked and I just broke down, said the mother. The family asked the police department to collect the evidence and begin an investigation, starting with the man that her daughter was on a date with. Bumble works alongside the authorities in investigations, but it does not initiate them, said a spokesperson for the company, and law enforcement has not requested user data in the case as of Thursday afternoon. As the circumstances around Lauren's untimely death are still under investigation, our team has offered our full support to Lauren's family as well as the Bridgeport police, said their chief executive Whitney Wolf Hurd in an Instagram post. Now, a city council member who represents Miss Smithfield's district wondered how the police department would treat a wealthy white mother and father who had lost their 23-year-old daughter, particularly if the last person she had been with was this 37-year-old black man she had met on a dating app. I believe wholeheartedly this would have never happened if it was an affluent white family's daughter, said Miss Perrier. So the hashtag Lauren Smith Fields has been viewed more than 27 million times on TikTok and videos about the case. Amateur sleuths have tried using the police report to piece together what happened and have encouraged viewers to call both the Bridgeport mayor's office and the police department. They lambasted national social media outlets for not covering her death sooner. Her friends have used the platform to post videos of Miss Smithfield showing her smiling, dancing around, and joking. Sometimes, when things get reported, you forget that a person had a whole life beyond what happened to them. The rapper Cardi B tweeted about Miss Smithfield's too, writing, "Connecticut, you have failed that young lady." Now, her family hopes that the investigation will provide clarity about what happened to her, and in the meantime, they're replaying their memories. Miss Field recalled the mommy-daughter days when they would get their nails done, with Miss Smithfield's opting for acrylic nails with intricate designs. "The nail salon we go to, everybody loves her," her mother said, admitting that her daughter was very bubbly and a hugger. She loved traveling, working out regularly at a nearby LA Fitness, and ordering matcha tea. She had notes around her mirror, her mother said, spelling out what she wanted to do with her life: finish college, become a physical therapist. Okay, so yeah. Interesting. Yeah, well, we'll keep on top of that. I did report on that yesterday, but yeah, we'll see what's going on there. Now, hi, crime scene cleaner. Sugar baby. Are you saying that man was her sugar daddy, but she just met him, didn't she? Only 3 or 4 days prior? The news is leaving out her brother dropped her off something. Where are you getting this information? This case is huge on other channels. They don't have the skills to break the case down. Thank you, Fans Guy, for the super chat. We need a deep dive. All right, well, if you want to send me any information that you might have that would help with that, my email is, I'll put it right here on the bottom, Fans Guy. Are you personally connected to the family, or you just have an interest? I wonder. There's a lot of interest. Her brother's sis dropped her off something. Her brother's sis. Oh, you're just looking at the police report? Okay, let me see. Let me hold on a minute. Okay, let me see here. Okay, here's the police report. Let me pull this up over there. All right, so upon arrival, a knock on the door was answered by a frantic man, later identified as, it's redacted. He directed me to the rear of the apartment to a bedroom. There I observed a young, adult, black female laying on her back on the floor. She had dried blood in and around the right nostril. She did not appear to be breathing. He told me that the person on the phone, the EOS call taker, instructed him to do chest compressions. He picked up his phone and asked if he should keep doing them. He was trembling and visibly shaken. The call taker later told him to hang up and speak with me. I told him the medics were on the way and the sirens could be heard in the distance. I asked what her name was and he replied Lauren. And when asked for her last name, he said he wasn't sure, but her Instagram page says it is Smith. He stated that he had only known her for 3 days, came here for the first time last night. They met on a dating site, Bumble. Fire and medics arrived on scene and began life-saving efforts for Lauren. When asked, redacted man stated that after meeting on Bumble, he found out that they had a mutual friend via Instagram and they began to chat there. She invited him over for a date, asking him to give her $40 to get her nails done and to bring a bottle of tequila. He said he arrived at her home at approximately 21:30 hours, tried to contact her via Instagram, called twice, but she did not answer. He said that he does not have any direct contact information for her, cell phone number, etc., and only contacts her via Instagram. Thinking he was stood up, he left, but Lauren called him to come back a short time later, saying that she didn't answer her call because she was putting on her makeup. He went on to say that they began drinking shots of tequila and Lauren became ill. She went to the bathroom to vomit and was apologetic when she returned. They then decided to drink the tequila with mixers. They played some games, ate some food, started to watch a movie. Lauren was texting with someone and then told him that her brother was going to be dropping something off to her. She went outside for a few minutes. He never saw her brother. When she came back in, she went straight to the bathroom and she stayed there for approximately 10 to 15 minutes. He thought it was odd, but didn't feel that it was his place to say anything, and he didn't know her that well. Now, again, this is this guy's version. Was there a statement from the brother corroborating this? Because he could just be covering his arse with this. Okay? They continued to watch the movie and finished a bottle of tequila. Lauren fell asleep on the couch. So he carried her to the bedroom and laid her in the bed. He then laid down next to her and fell asleep. He woke up approximately 300 hours to use the bathroom, and Lauren was snoring. He woke up again at 6:30, and she was laying on her right side, blood coming out of her right nostril onto the bed. She was not breathing, and that's when he called 911. The AMR medic, number 3038, truck 715, pronounced her dead at 6:49 hours. He told me that she has been dead for at least an hour or more. Blank gave a written field statement as to his account of the events of the evening. I notified Sergeant DeBarros and request that Detective Bureau Supervisor be notified via dispatch. Sergeant DeBarros arrived shortly thereafter. I contacted Stated Medical Examiner Jacqueline Messerol at 7:04. And the case number there. I found a U.S. passport identifying Lauren as Miss Lauren Smith Fields. I found mail with the same name, a MasterCard with the name, and $1,345 in cash. There was a cell phone on the couch that identified her as Mrs. Smith. There was a cell phone on the couch that person again identified as Miss Smith's phone, Smithfield's phone. There was also some mail to a Ms. Stephanie Green and a Mr. Brian Green. Detective Sergeant Morales and Detective Cronin arrived on the scene at 8:12 hours. The medical examiner arrived on the scene shortly thereafter. I made contact with Mr. Hector Torres. He is the landlord and lives on the second floor. He said that Miss Smith Fields has lived there for almost a year. He knows that her mother stops by occasionally, but he does not know her and he has no contact information for her. He was issued a complaint service form and asked to give it to Miss Smith Fields' mother the next time he sees her. Detective Cronin gave Mr. Torres his contact information before he and Detective Sergeant Morales left the scene. The medical examiner informed me that a trade service would be coming to retrieve the body before she left the scene. Dr. Roll Randolph of Nutmeg Trade Service arrived on scene at 9:33. He completed the State of Connecticut Officer of the Chief Medical Examiner removal authorization form and left the white copy with me. After the body was removed, I located a key that fit the front door lock. I made sure all windows and doors were secure and all lights were off. Locked both locks on the front door when I left. Miss Smithfield's money, key, passport, MasterCard, and cell phone were all turned over in the property room for safekeeping and further investigation. The written field statement and the removal authorization form were turned in to the record room, and copies of these forms were attached to this report. Okay, let's see. These online dates don't seem safe. Remind me of Angela Tremonte, who died during the hiking trip. Well, you're hearing the ones that ended badly. There's lots and lots of hundreds of thousands of people that have met, married, and, they are good for what they're good for, but just like everything, there's going to be things that don't turn out the way they should. It's not so much that they're safe. Like, is meeting a guy in a bar safe? Is meeting a guy, there's going to be things that happen all the time. You know what I mean? That the way I think meeting online is just the way it is now. Brother said, hold on a minute. Brother said he went to pick something up. Where did you see that? They treated her like a junkie. Hold on a minute. Let me see something. Okay, so the cause of death was acute intoxication due to the combined effects of fentanyl, promethazine, hydroxyzine, and alcohol. Fentanyl, we know what that is. Promethazine. Promethazine is used to prevent and treat nausea and vomiting related to certain conditions. And let's see, what else did he say? Hydroxyzine. Hydroxyzine is used in adults and children to relieve itching caused by allergic skin reactions. That's also sometimes used for anxiety, it says here. Okay. And then alcohol, of course. The family said once they reached out to the detective, he confirmed that Lauren had passed away. She had met a man. When I asked the officer about the guy, he said he was a very nice guy, and they weren't looking into him anymore, said Lauren's brother, Lakeem Jeter. It was almost as if he was sticking up for him, and it seemed weird to hear that from a detective. After the family continued to ask questions about the investigation, that's when they began running into issues. He told me directly on the phone to stop calling him and hung up in my face. It was like total disrespect. Like, that's what you tell a family that's going through grief and trying to find answers, asked Jeter. The way they talked to me, the way they have talked to my family, how they treated my daughter, they treated her like she was nobody, like she was not important, said Chantel Smith. The family said each time they reached out to the police department, they felt anger and frustration. Those emotions and search for answers led them to hiring an attorney, Darnell Crossland, in an effort to get justice for Lauren. Okay, so the brother... Hold on a minute. The brother is Lakeem Jeter. Lakeem Jeter. Okay, so there was no fear in Chantel Field's voice. The worst had already happened when she found out that her youngest child, Lauren, had been pronounced dead. Days after it took place. But as she and her son, Lakeem Jeter, began to go through the details of it, her tone tightened and the force of strength pushed through her grief as she declared, "The family, we are her voice. The more we fight, the more I get nervous and scared for my family," Chantel said. As we originally reported, the family of Lauren Smith Fields is suing the city of Bridgeport, Connecticut in connection with the police department on the grounds of mishandling the case, which is, according to the attorney representing the family, Darnell Crossland, a violation of the 1983 Civil Rights Act. In a now viral tweet from Cardi B, the rapper said, "Connecticut, you have failed this young lady." Lauren was the life of the party, according to Chantel and Lakeem. She loved music and coincidentally, was a huge fan of Bia's breakout hit, Whole Lot of Money. And Bia also tweeted, who's a rapper, mainstream attention to the case. Crossland, the attorney, also spoke, confirmed on Wednesday that to date multiple pieces of key evidence, including lubrication, a used condom with semen, a pill, and a sheet with bloodstains, have not been received by the lab. The evidence was found by Chantel, Lakeem, and other family members on December 29th, a full 17 days after Lauren's death. The day that the family was there, they wanted a swab of everyone, and we were like, wait, shouldn't you be worried about the two people that were there that night? And Detective Garcia told us that if we didn't give him a swab then, we won't continue the investigation. Chantel said, Lakeem added, the crime scene investigator and detective told the family that they wanted our DNA to rule us out. The family didn't provide their DNA or consent to a swab. On January 23rd, when Lauren would have turned 24, her family organized a march in Bridgeport that attracted local and national attention the following day after being told the cause of death could take 30 days. The Connecticut Office of the Chief Medical Examiner ruled her death accidental. Okay, what about the acute intoxication, which we went over? Smith Field's family maintains that Lauren had no history of drug use. Further, when the case made it to Court TV, forensic experts Joseph Scott Morgan, who was also an expert correspondent during the George Floyd trial, was brought in to speak about the combination of drugs in her system. We're talking about a 23-year-old young lady here, he said. This is not somebody who would have had time to develop these dependencies that are multi-layered drugs, and we see that later on in life. I think there are some hard scientific questions that need to be asked in addition to the investigative questions of the drug allegations. Crossland said, I think that they were going to shut up or lose faith in Lauren, and I think on the drug allegations, Crossland, that's the attorney, said, I think they thought we were going to shut up and lose faith in Lauren and think she was just a drug addict. But people didn't run away. They doubled down. The day she died, the police confiscated Lauren's cell phone, a passport, keys, a credit card, and a little over $1,300 in cash. Lauren had been pronounced dead at around 6:49 a.m. The night before her death, she met with 37-year-old Matthew LaFountain, a white man who she became acquainted with through a mobile dating app, Bumble. He is believed to have been the last person to have seen her alive. Medics said Lauren had been dead for at least an hour prior to Matthew LaFountain calling 911. Now, his name was redacted from the initial report, which we read. He has a lawyer now, Peter Karayanis is representing him, and says his client will not be making any formal statements. And he has not ruled out taking any legal action of his own, who added it's still too early to tell in regards to that. Earlier in the week, the family's attorney alleged a possible connection between Cronin and LaFountain during an interview with Atlanta Black Star. According to the attorney, they've been tight-lipped about his involvement, but we've been finding out on social media that this Matthew and the individual who was with Lauren has a huge connection with the police department, and his family does as well, further alleging that Cronin has intentionally or negligently created a cover-up for the responsible party in Lauren's death. Lauren's family was told by the landlord that someone knocked on the door that night around the time she was to have actually died. The landlord said he got a knock on the door at 5:30, and he didn't answer it because it was too late. The 911 call was at 6:30, so who came and knocked at the door at 5:30? The brother Lakeem asked. To the family's knowledge, this has yet to be investigated. It's been widely reported that the family was told that about Lauren's death from the landlord, who placed a note on the door. It was horrifying, her brother Lakeem said. When you got there, you could see the terror in the landlord and kid's eyes. They didn't want to tell us she was dead. Chantel said it looks as if the Bridgeport doesn't have a protocol in place when it comes to communicating with black families. They're saying that they don't need us. When a person passes away, they have 24 hours to reach out by phone or knock on the door. Detective Kevin Cronin was removed from the case after alleged misconduct pending an ongoing investigation with Internal Affairs. As of today, the Fields family has not seen Cronin in person, but their interaction with him has been exclusively over the phone, and that's been enough to get him removed from the case and placed on administrative leave. Crossland alleged on Wednesday the possibility of an inappropriate relationship within the precinct. The acting police chief was a longtime live-in girlfriend of the head of Internal Affairs. We have a lot to outline this incestuous, corrupt, and disorganized space here. Chantal and Lakeem remember walking into the police precinct and being treated as suspects, they said, where they thought they would have been meeting in a regular room used for non-criminals or persons of interest. They were instead put in a tiny interrogation room. When the family walked into the precinct, Chantal said the entire room stopped. Everyone looked up and they gave us dirty looks, the brother added. It was scary. They were yelling at our lawyer, telling him to shut up, and grabbing at their guns. The family was told they were there to have a meeting with the police officers involved with the case. They didn't want to answer questions about the case, Chantal said. It was recently announced that the case would become a homicide investigation led by the Bridgeport police. The family has lost confidence in the Bridgeport police as they've expressed consistently. It's smoke and mirrors, Lakeem said. They just want to go away. They just want it to go away, Chantel added. The attorney plans to get the Department of Justice involved. We're sending a letter to the Department of Justice in D.C. and ask for that a case manager be assigned to this case. Let's see. And come with a team. We need help from an outside agency to oversee this because we don't have confidence that they'll do it on their own. Huh. And then what was this about? So, what is this? This is... I don't know, there's a lot of speculation here on some other sites here about things, huh? Now, let's see, the brother had another interview with... Her family said the march was not only to honor her, but also to seek justice. Let's see. I just could not believe that my baby sister was gone, Jeter said. The loss is so devastating. I've never lost a sibling before. My mother has never lost a child before. The way they handled the investigation was literally disgraceful, disgusting, horrible. It was not even human, Lakeem Jeter, Smithfield's brother, said in an interview with Good Morning America. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, okay, so we'll have to keep looking into that case. Fans guy, was it? All right, we'll see what happens there. Hi, Mark, okay. Sherry Shirley, 80s girl. Yeah, I mean, yeah, probably, maybe. If they don't find residue with the fentanyl, hard case to prove. Anyway, I'm gonna go. I have to record some craft videos that I'm gonna do as a premiere, but I'm gonna get those going. Yeah, it is a shame they left all that stuff there, absolutely. All right, guys. I don't know why no one's here. It's so crazy. This is weird because it's not even like it's a multiple video or something. I'm getting a real complex. But anyway, all right. I'm glad that those of you that made it. Appreciate that. Thank you for your support, and I don't know what else is going on. But I will talk to you guys later, okay? Thanks so much. Bye now. Let's see here. I've got to end this.